easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel.
From the high banks of Daytona Beach, Florida at the Daytona International Speedway, we head to round 2 of the FMA Prototype Challenge Series. We head from North America to South America at the world-famous Jose Carlos Place, the Autodromo Jose Carlos Place, better known as INTERLAGOS. Welcome, folks, to round 2 of what is shaping up to be one of the best series on the FMA docket, a series that features 2 classes, the GTPs and the LMP2s, both equally vicious and competitive in their own rights. We had a great first race last week. It came down to the final lap in the GTP class. Eventually, it was Anthony Jenkins taking the win in the opening round of our series. We'll see today if Jeremy Eshelman can pick up his second win of the campaign in the early stages in his repeat performance in the second class. Hi everybody, I am Marshall Crocker. I am your color commentator and your producer for all things FMA Prototype Challenge. My co-commentator in the booth up here alongside me, Alex Goldschmidt, will join us here in a few moments. We're just waiting on him as the broadcast sets up here. Let's get into a bit of detail for you to get set for tonight's broadcast. We come to the final couple minutes of qualifying. 2 minutes left to go in the qualifying session. First of all, let's look at the track. The Autodromo Jose Carlos Place, better known as INTERLAGOS, 4.3 kilometer long circuit, 15 corners, many of which are far from conventional. You're going to see a lot of high-speed, medium-speed sweepers, corners that are really going to provide a great passing opportunity, but also many opportunities for trials and tribulations and a variety of errors. Errors really spelled today last week at Daytona International Speedway. We'll see if that is the case again today. A historic venue. Some of the great races in all of motorsport history took place here at INTERLAGOS. We'll see if that holds true in our second round today. Here are the points through only 1 week of racing. At the top of GTP, it is Anthony Jenkins, your race winner from week 1, your pole sitter from that race, and the P2 finisher who was passed on the last lap. Mr. Brock Morris will start in the second position. Rounding off the podium that night was Brian Scott. Tankersley and Davis complete the top 5. You see the rest of the GTP point lineup. And then in the LMP2 class, it was K.H. Donahue finishing second in that race, but the bonus points put him provisionally atop the LMP2 point standings. It is Jeremy Eshelman up there with an evenly tied 40 points, who will try to defend his crown from week 1 today. Decio Lima, David Marino, and Gustavo Ferraro, your top 5. Don't forget, Decio Lima, we actually had it corrected in the post-race broadcast booth that he won the battle for third. The final spot on the podium went to Decio Lima last week in a photo finish with David Marino. Let's get you set, because I think we are in for an absolute barn burner of a race tonight. Here's your series schedule. We're in week 2 of the calendar, the last race of the month of March, and we are into April here momentarily. I am deeply excited. I can't wait to see what we've got in store today. And joining alongside me as we get ready for the start of proper racing action as qualifying comes to an end, it is the voice. It is one of the great voices in all of the history of sports car racing. Mr. Alex Goldschmidt, are you ready for a second week of what in week 1 proved to be one of the best series we've got on the Racer Nexus docket.
Is definitely going to bring the samba and heat action, because this Brazilian circuit is really going to give everybody a test. I mean, we're going to see big high speeds, heavy braking zones, elevation changes, you name it, we've probably got it here tonight.
Very, very well put. It's one of those circuits that no matter what background of racing you're from, you know Interlagos, you've seen battles here. Some of the greats of all time have carved their teeth at the well-known circuit that is Interlagos. Let's get into your starting lineup. It's a gentleman who's going to lead us off here in GTP that is not too unfamiliar to the top of the chart in qualifying. Let's get into it. I'll let you run it down here, Mr. Goldschmidt.
So it is going to be the case that Brock Morris and Zach Tankersley will line up on the front row of the grid with Cadillac and Acura alongside each other. Anthony Jenkins and Brian Scott round out row number 2. We then head to row 3. Matt Mars in the only BMW M8 hybrid on the grid will line up on the inside of row 3. Chase Matsko in the Sol Ferrari on P6. Ryan Peters and Jay Davis round out your top 4 rows. And we do have a complement of 10, yes, 10 GTPs. More to the point, well, it is going to be the fact of Robert Milbrath. Jacob Brown due to start P10. Eduardo Sales leads the way in the Dallara P217 LMP2 division ahead of Jeremy Eshelman, who won last time out on week 1 out of 12. He'll then have behind him Anthony Sorrentino and Gustavo Ferraro alongside each other. Well, we've got Decio Lima, Gustavo Ferraro due to start row 7. Broughton Jones and Jody Nielsen and Broughton Jones starting on the 8th row of the grid. Then row 9, it's Ignacio Arroyo and Justin Welsh. Then rounding out the field should be Jacob Brown due to start at the back of the field. KH Donahue, who won the race last week, will be behind David Marino. No relation, I would imagine, to the famed NFL quarterback from the Miami Dolphins. Of course, I am talking about a man who then turned to acting, Dan Marino. But that's by the by. But when you think about it here at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, this is going to be another 60 minutes. We've got quite a long way in the calendar to go until we hit our first set of endurance races. That's the Porsche pace car leads the field away, and still, when you think about it here, Marshall, there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide here in Sao Paulo.
You are most certainly right. There was not a lot of running nor hiding last week at Daytona to get us kicked off. I said it in the intro. This is a track that is going to be just as punishing on mistakes, and maybe even a little bit easier to get by, to pass. It's hard to say, you know, coming off a track that had an oval for 3/4 of the lap. But it is certainly not too hard to set up overtakes at Interlagos. So let's see if your pole sitter Brock Morris can hold off those overtake attempts tonight.
Right, get ready, get set for the roller coaster here in Sao Paulo as we go green for 60 minutes here in round 2 of the Freedom Motorsport Alliance Prototype Challenge Series, and Brock Morris gets the launch he needs. Brian Scott trying to go toe-to-toe with Matt Mars in the number 34 BMW M8 Hybrid. The first time one of those vehicles has been on the series, and more to the point, they head down Eta Aposta into Descido del Lago. Down and up the hill they go for the first time. Jeremy Eshelman is currently sitting in the lead. Decio Lima in P2, Gustavo Ferraro in P3, Eduardo Sales as Lima goes for the lead through out of turn number 6, and it is going to be very close going into La Lagina and Ferradura for the first time. A man from Greensburg, Pennsylvania, trying to hold on in front of the Brazilian, who does just for the moment get in the lead, but Eshelman looked to stick his nose up the inside, but Decio Lima the most energetic interview I think you and I both have had post-racing any sim race where someone has been so enthusiastic despite the fact of finding out that he'd accidentally and inadvertently put on his push to talk and forgot to find the shortcut button last time out. But Brock Morris leads us over the line to complete the opening lap, but there has been drama. Justin Welsh in the 67 has just lost it coming out of Junsao.
Let's get a replay here. This is Justin Welsh now down to P18, right where he started. Looking to the outside, they're right on the rumble curbing on the outside. It doesn't look like much. It's not painted rainbow like you'd often see, but on cold tires and a prototype with such high revs produced, that will bite you every day of the week. An early mistake here for Welsh, who has done quite well for himself in a couple other series around FMA. As we see Broughton Jones as well has gone off track. Trouble for a couple of the LMP2s early. Jones actually started in P7 in class, and I believe right where he finished last week at Daytona. So early troubles for a couple of decently well finishing LMP2 drivers from last week. As Robert Milbrath is also having trouble here on the cold tires.
He's adopted a bit of a night rider livery on that one. All he needs is the scanner from Kit in the 1980s to be on the front of that Acura ARX 06, but the man from Lobelville, Tennessee, in the number 34 is trying to move forward, and still it's great to have the BMW M8 hybrid on the grid finally, as we do have a whole complement of all the 5 GTPs or LMPHs if you love your FIA1 Endurance Championship action on the grid here for FMA sports car, sports car action. Of course, we do also cover their GT3s. Tankersley tries to get through and manages to make the move, and that is now P4 I think, as he's just gone through I think on Chase Matsko. Jody Nielsen, the man from Lewiston, Idaho, is also trying to close on into Gustavo Ferraro, who looks like it is actually Anthony Sorrentino. So battles are thick and fast in this early stage of the second week out of 12 here for the series live here on Race and Access. Thank you so much to everyone joining us, as the man from Kenosha in the 604 trying to pull away and has gotten the march on Jody Nielsen, as they are going to be very much on their own in some respects, because as soon as we see these gaps come out, and more to the point that Anthony Jenkins has started to run away a little bit with this here, Marshall.
Well, Jenkins doing quite well, at least to get away from P3. That's Brian Scott, but Brock Morris up front, who's looks pretty quick all week. I've been watching lap times for all these drivers as they practice, publicize their telemetry. Brock Morris has been stupid quick, and he was last week at Daytona. You remember, though, in the late stages, it was Jenkins just more and more consistent, pace and pace and pace, and he found it through the race. Eventually caught Brock Morris on the last lap. Today, Brock Morris, you got to think, if there's any piece of Brock Morris in that 05 car that feels like, we'll take this easy, we don't need him to push a foot to the floor every single lap, I think last week would have taught him that lesson, Alex. I think he's going to push right from the go, and clearly he's done so. That gap now almost up to 4 seconds.
Yep, coming up to nearly 5 minutes completed here in week 2 out of 12. And there we go. Yes, Chase Matsko, we do have to say this, that Kimi Räikkönen also raced in Formula 1 in this livery. He kind of scolded us publicly on the Discord server last week for not having mentioning the Iceman, who famously told, when he was not on the grid for one particular race in his Formula 1 career, was then approached by said ex-F1 driver and colour commentator alongside Sky Sports F1's David Croft, Martin Brundle. Well, he promptly told him where he'd been. He'd gone to the little boys' room, let's say. Well, in Finnish, it was a little bit different in the vernacular that he used. But nevertheless, Chase is trying to give Brian Scott a little bit of pressure as they come through turn 15, known as Arquibacanas, which is the Brazilian Portuguese for the bleachers, which every single time motorsport heads to the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, opened back on May the 12th, 1940, which is effectively, it celebrated its 86th anniversary. Oh, right, Matt Mars in the, well, all I can say is he's had a drama through the center S's here at turn 1. So they come across the front stretch, turns in. Is that back end going to swap? Yeah, lock up on the left front. And, well, the brake bias, I think, might need to be adjusted on that BMW.
This whole series as a whole, so many drivers throughout the field, successful or not, run very, very, let's say aggressive. Let's say, what's the word I want to use? Very volatile brake biases, and you see it with big lockups like that. Oftentimes, it's a good way to get tires up to temperature early in the stint. I think we're past that phase, though. About 7 minutes into this race, you'd think whatever tire temp you're going to have, you've got to be at almost optimal. So to make just a simple lockup error like that, not even, you know, kind of moving under braking too much, looked like he had pretty good straight wheel input. Surprised to see a car go around like that. Decio Lima, though, up into the P1 position in the LMP2 class. Don't forget, I know there's a couple of green and black cars that are doing very successful in this series, including one in Salas that qualified up front. But Decio Lima did start P4, is already up to P1. Early stages, and again, we saw last week, Alex, cars from further back in the field flying up the order on true race pace. One of them, of course, being Jeremy Eshelman, who last week qualified all the way down in P8 in class, went on to win that race. You got to think giving him a bit of a head start up in P2 isn't too bad, but he's not exactly reeling in the car ahead. He was 2/10 faster last time by. Let's see what Eshelman can do on his 5th lap of the race.
Yeah, we're seeing that the fastest of the GTPs, I mean, Brock Morris currently running on mid 24.1, Jenkins a high 24.3, Brian Scott has just done his fastest lap of the race of 24.42, Tankersley 24.43, Peters on a 25.7, Matsko's done a 25.46. You're looking at anywhere between a 4 to 7 second differential between the top performing GTPs and the top performing LMP2s. Let's not forget that the Vortex Racing pairing of Decio Lima and Gustavo Ferraro did come to blows last week at Daytona. And all I can say is it hasn't gone well for David Marino, I'm afraid. He's just come out. He's big time down on laps. He was out of the pit lane after 6.25 minutes plus, and he must have had a big old amount of damage, because he now comes back out effectively what is last in the LMP2 division, as Robert Milbrath has come in pit road in the 45 Acura ARX 06. So probably he's been another one that's been bitten hard by the curse of Interlagos as Brock Morris comes through. And meantime, Brock Morris has set the fastest lap of the race. The man from Lapeer, Michigan, has just done a 23.62. Eshelman getting closer and closer to the rear diffuser of Decio Lima as they come out of the Cover de Sol at turn 3, now down the Reta Posta, which is the back stretch, heading into turns 4 and 5 at Desira del Lago. But here comes Eduardo Sales. He was looking very, very racy in the number 22 as he goes a little bit wide coming out of turn 5 at Desira del Lago. Then it's up to Ferradura here at turn 6, so it's up the hill, a sweeping double right-hand complex through Ferradura, La Regina into Essay, then into Pinarino, which is turn 9. Then Pico de Pato, the Duck's Bill, at turn 10. Very, very tight right-hander, but you can do a bit of a switchback if you get it timed right here at this 10th out of 15 corners. Then into Magulo before Junsao at turn 12, which is effectively a 90 left, but you can see that Eshelman is really looking left and right to try and see if you can put one past Decio Lima as they go through Subida's boxes, up through into turn 14, now up into Arquibacandas, the bleachers, and look at the run that Jeremy Eshelman has got. He's going to the outside here at turn number 15. Can he go high? Can he go wide on Decio Lima? The answer is yes, but Lima's going to dive to the inside back at turn 1 at the center S's. But can Eshelman have the gumption? They make a little bit of a touch through into turn 2, and Decio Lima holds on to the lead. But look at Sales just behind Eshelman. He's looking to the right-hand side coming out of turn 3 at Curva de Sol. Do not try and go around the outside at turn 4 unless you're feeling very brave at Desira del Lago. And still Eshelman holds on to second position despite a great little fight with race leader in LMP2, Decio Lima.
Well, as that battle continues there for the P2 position, potentially the lead in LMP2, depending on the way this all works out. Let's quickly take a look at an incident a moment ago, I believe, between two of the cars in GTP, ranked 4th and 5th. That's Matsko, and then that's Tankersley, the car center screen, white and pink. Get into each other there. A little bit of a low-speed collision. Both roll through it. Neither car completely goes around. I want to see that again, kind of from Matsko's perspective, a little bit closer. Let's see his car in front.
Tankersley, I think it's Tankersley that goes a little bit deep going into Mergulo, makes the contact with the left side of the 26 Ferrari and turns them both around. Ignacio Arroyo, the man from Puerto Rico, is just in front. So we're going to see it from another angle. Here's the dive up the inside. Bang, there's the contact. I think Tankersley just mistimed it a little bit there. He thought there was a gap, but also the fact was he wasn't far enough alongside, in my honest opinion. I think it was just a little bit of a late lunge, and yeah, there wasn't enough room in the tavern for him to get through. But meantime, Eshelman and Sales are continuing on with a great amounts of speed and confidence. Their battle for P2 in the LMP2 division at the moment here, Marshall.
It's a great one to watch, and we really didn't get a chance to see many of Eshelman's, offensive and defensive racecraft skill last week. He just kind of flew through the field, picked them off one after another. Today, he is a much more apparently even with a lot of cars in terms of raw pace. I know Jeremy said earlier this week, he announced kind of in our drivers chat that he's had some stuff open up. He's got a lot more time to dedicate to racing. And clearly, he's still got always room for improvement here, because these guys like Decio Lima, like Edward Salas, it looked like last week with that pure race pace, he might be one to beat, might be in a class of his own in this series. Looks like they brought him right back down to earth. He's going to have to use that new practice time to keep up with these absolute burners down in that second class. As the battle between Matsko and Tankersley continues after that quick incident a moment ago. It didn't demote them any positions, but it did put them 6 seconds behind Brian Scott in third, and up to almost 15 seconds to your top two, Morris and Jenkins.
Yeah, this is going to be rather crucial, because we are nearly at the 15-minute mark, so nearly a quarter of a way through this second week out of. As here goes Eshelman to the outside of the center S's again on Lima, and he runs off track completely. That might cost him, as Eduardo Sales to the outside, and here goes Gustavo Ferraro. He just literally hip checks. It was more like a shoulder charge in NHL that he just did there on Eshelman, and Sorrentino gets through. Sales now goes for the lead through INTERLAGOS.
Everybody's
and oh, cool. It's one for the money, two for the show, and it's three for Eshelman to go, and he's got up the inside of two of them. So it's Sales from Sorrentino, Eshelman, Ferraro, Lima down to 5th place. Oh, we've got a real roller coaster here at Sao Paulo, courtesy of the LMP2 division. And that has been 3 lead changes within around about 7 corners here at the Interlagos circuit, and still they are not giving any quarter whatsoever. Fantastic to watch this battle rage on quite clearly, as we are a couple of seconds away from the 15-minute mark being completed. So the man from Kenosha is doing a pretty good job holding on to second position. Meantime, Jay Davis is trying to hold off the advances of BMW M8 Hybrid of Matt Mars for position in the class, as Jeremy Eshelman has ended up in pit lane. He was running at the sharp end of the field. Now I'm wondering if he has picked up some damage. It looks like that front end is looking a little bit forlorn, maybe, possibly left front, but I can't seem to see much damage, unless he decided, well, he's probably copped a little bit of damage and decided, well, I might want to get out of the way. Nearly 15 seconds on his marks in the pit lane there, Marshall. It has been a bit of a difficult one in the LMP2s to try and separate everybody, but they have been going at it hammer and tongs here tonight so far in this race.
They certainly have. A little bit of a surprise to see Eduardo Salas come out with the best of anybody, already up a second and a half on Sorrentino of anybody. Let's go back about 2 laps and look at that battle, because really there, right here, the two cars go off. You see the front two, that was Eshelman and Ferraro are the ones that go off track. Or pardon me, here's Ferraro as he comes through the field. That was Decio Lima, who now sits fourth in the active race. Back here, Sorrentino gets the move on Eshelman. And then it all breaks down here into turn number 4. Salas goes to the inside. He's fine. Look at Sorrentino from all these car lengths back. He's the reason this all breaks down. And then up the inside, here he goes, shoots, well, a driver now towards the back of the field in Eshelman. And then Lima loses another position. So it's that moment with Sorrentino I was trying to figure out what went on. That would be what it was.
Yeah, so, yeah, it just quickly descended into chaos because Sorrentino tried to do his best Danny Rick impersonation and lick the stamp and send it, and it quite literally meant that it was turn 4 and turn 5 at Tecido del Lago became a rudimentary bowling alley for at least 5 seconds when everyone went off circuit behind the leaders, including Eduardo Sales, who is starting to build a gap over Anthony Sorrentino, which is now to the tune of 1.6 seconds. Meantime, Anthony Jenkins in the second place 732 Cadillac. Obviously, we saw the great battle between Brock Morris and Anthony Jenkins last time out, Marshall. And they're only 4.2 seconds apart. We've still got a little bit more to go until the pit window becomes rudimentary for these drivers, and thereby we'll then see who might have the fuel strategy down pat here at Interlagos, because it's a lot of point and squirt. You know, there's braking zones, it's turning in, it's then waiting, then hit the power, try and get the traction down out of the corners as we're riding on board once again with Chase Matsko, who has got Zach Tankersley closing back in. Of course, Tankersley running in the Meyer Shanks Racing livery of that particular Acura. And of course, for those GTP race fans, when it comes to the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, well, racing has already gotten underway in terms of the championship season. Just the other week at Sebring International Raceway in real life, but here at Interlagos, the FMA Prototype Challenge Series carries on as Broughton Jones, who was also had a race of big old ups and downs last week at the series opener at Daytona here for FMA.
Yes, indeed. It feels like there's nobody in this series, maybe in either class, that hasn't had some sort of major incident here through the first 2 weeks, which doesn't necessarily at all speak to the, any sort of downside from the drivers. It really has just been 2 pretty tough racetracks that are both very temperamental on tires. Any circuit with a lot of straightaways, a lot of opportunities where you kind of get in a rhythm, you kind of break your stride there in the corners. And then this particular circuit, how much Interlagos heats up those tires from sweeper to sweeper to sweeper, putting all that lateral load on the tires of these prototype cars. They're tough, they're tricky, and a lot of these incidents come from the great battling we've seen in both series. So we said it last week, it's one thing to be really quick in practice, it's one thing to have a great first week, but we both asked in the interviews, how do you think it'll extrapolate over the course of a season? And I think that's going to be the real test for, say, somebody like current race leader in GTP, Brock Morris, another guy. He's got the flat-out pace. We know that. If we look at the fastest laps of the race overall, this is the entire race, he's got the best lap of the session by 0.2 to Jenkins, and then almost over half a second to Zach Tankersley. So he's got pure pace. We know he's going to be a threat this season. It's races like this. Can he be one to avoid those mistakes?
Yeah, and it's all about getting into that kind of flow state, getting ready for, when we hit week 3 next time out. And of course, then it's another circuit that the drivers are going to have to familiarize themselves with very, very quickly. And considering the fact that later on in the series, when we have the first of our, well, we have two 2-hour endurance races, and the first of which will be Silverstone later on in the season. We'll have a 90-minute at Spa, and then we'll have the Watkins Glen double points series finale to close things off. And then that's when, you could still be the equivalent of 2 race wins behind, and you could still be in the mix for what looks to be a rather exciting championship, and considering the fact that already we're going to have, we're having a really, really good one. I mean, next up on April the 2nd, well, we're going to be heading to Road Atlanta, and that is another track where the drivers are going to have to bring their A game. No questions asked, no answers needed.
Yeah, and that's going to be one that is, I think, more than these first two tracks, technical in a low-speed sense. There's a lot more corners that are going to prioritize really good understanding of the brakes, really good back-end control, skills that not necessarily weren't, applicable to these first two tracks, Daytona and Interlagos, but I think it's going to test in a different way, especially under the circumstances of a multi-class series. We haven't seen the LMP2s really be a huge hindrance to the prototypes. They did a really good job not playing a role in the race-winning battle last week between Brock Morris and Anthony Jenkins. But as we see Anthony Jenkins kind of weave through some here, maybe we'll take that as an example. It is going to play a role here later in the season, and that is the perfect example. A track like Road Atlanta, there are certainly sections there, Alex, where it is truly single file. There is one racing line. It's very technical. You got to hit certain points. That will be interesting to see if, as the season goes on, maybe as the car counts rise, what role will the multi-class element play? Because in the real world, Petit Le Mans, that is the name of the game. One decision to stay behind a GT as a prototype can cost you 4 or 5 seconds just through a 15-second section of racetrack. It's going to be fascinating to see next week as Gustavo Ferraro, our second driver in the LMP2 class, to head down pit road. I think we can both agree Eshelman, it was a little uncharacteristically early. We theorized damage. Ferraro pits now, only 23 minutes into the race, just a few minutes short of halfway.
Yeah, maybe he might have short fuel to keep the car light and very, very agile around this circuit. And especially with the fact that you need a car that has got that combination of straight line speed and adaptability around the corners. 21.57 seconds is the amount of time that Gustavo Ferraro has stayed stationary in the pits in the Vortex Racing 777 car. So obviously, by seeing that we've got we've actually got Gonzalez 70 in the chat, who is supporting Eduardo, and then Decio and Gustavo, because all three are from the from the same nation. It is their home track here at Interlagos, but I would imagine that they're all under the same banner, but Eduardo Salas running with a very, very different livery, with that sort of like deep grey blending into white, blending into that very, very bright green part of the Brazilian flag national colours. Of course, when you look at the talent that has come through the ranks of Brazilian motors, Brazilian racing, and I'm not just talking about those that have gone international, such as the likes of the late 3-time Formula 1 world champion Ayrton Senna da Silva. You look at the names such as Piquet, Barrichello, Mauricio, Casagrange, and quite a few others that have made their mark within not just as I said, like you know the mainstays like Senna, Piquet, Barrichello when it comes to Formula 1. Then you look at the Brazilian world of racing. There's a big melting pot, especially when you have the likes of 3-time Stock Car Pro Series champion Gabriel Casagrange, Ricardo Mauricio, who's won it 3 times, Caca Bueno, who's won the Stock Car Pro Series 5 times in total, Daniel Serra, who's also not just racing over in Brazil, but he's also a 2-time winner of the Le Mans 24 Hours back when LMGTE was a thing. As we now see that Eduardo Sales is just being passed. Looks like Brock Morris has just gone through, so he's put a lap down on the class leader. So the LMP2s are now starting to make their way into pit lane. Sales has come in, Sorrentino has come in, Decio Lima, it looks like, Jody Nielsen in the 56 car has gone on and now will take the lead in the LMP2 class. And then it's just down to Justin Welsh and Broden Jones, who are the last 2 drivers, apart from Jody Nielsen, that have yet to pit. Jeremy Eshelman pitted back on lap 10 as Zach Tankersley has just got a slow down penalty for exceeding track limits. Looks like it might have been the exit of Curva de Sol that just gave him that track limit penalty. So he's had to serve that as he heads through Desida de Lago at turns 4 and turns 5. And, well, Decio Lima makes good his intention, comes out of pit lane, will be quite a way ahead of Anthony Sorrentino, who I think, well, that is a very, very lengthy pit stop for the number 604, and that says to me either he's forgotten to uncheck the tyre box, or more than likely that is damage that he is dealing with. So Sorrentino is stationary now for just over 70 seconds, so that is going to cost him in terms of positioning here at Interlagos for week 2 out of 12.
So this now gets interesting here for now new provisional race leader there, LMP2 Jody Nielsen, who sits 8th overall, but is first in class. The Lewiston, Idaho native is going to stay out another lap around the circuit, and Zach Tankersley now enters pit road, P5 currently in the GTPs upon entry. But looking here at Jody Nielsen, he's about 22 seconds, dropping just below now to Eduardo Salas, the first driver that is pitted on this most recent set of cycles. Don't forget, Eshelman did pit earlier in the race, a little bit uncharacteristically at lap 10. As you see there, Nielsen is going to let a GTP of Chase Matz go by. But it's going to be interesting here, Alex. I think it's all to play for the Jody Nielsen, a car that has run really well tonight. He started back in 6th. He's putting up good lap times, even to anybody on the racetrack except Gustavo Ferraro and Ignacio Arroyo, who both are about a second quicker than that entire class right now. He's still in play potentially, easily for a podium, maybe even for a win. And he's kind of having that Jeremy Eshelman path. Guy we haven't really seen make too many moves on track. It's all about that pit cycle. You know darn well here, Alex, even 1 hour of racing, if you make 1-2 pit stops in that time, you're pit in, you're pit out, and most importantly, like you said, what you take on that pit stop, not making a mistake, accidentally taking tires or something that you don't mean to. That can often spell the podium in a race with as fine of margins as these. Keep an eye on Jody Nielsen as this race goes a little further.
Yeah, he's going very, very deep into this. I think both he and maybe even Justin Welsh, who is currently running P2, Jeremy Eshelman, who's only about 6.5 tenths behind him, rounds out your top 3. Jody Nielsen finally on lap 19 pits, so it could be a one-stop strategy for the Lewiston, Idaho native in the number 56. He pulls to the left-hand side of the pit lane as Zach Tankersley is in, and he's been in for over 40 seconds, so it looks like Sorrentino took major damage because he's been in there for over 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Tankersley is in there, and let's see how long that pit stop takes. That's going to be north of a minute at the moment, the way the stopwatch is consistently counting. But Eshelman now back in the race lead, being chased down by Eduardo Sales, who is 2.25 seconds behind. But Eshelman goes off track ever so slightly at Desida de Lago at turns 4 and 5, manages to gather it back together. Here comes Jody Nielsen out of pit lane. It's a short run to the pit exit line, but then you get all this nice long opportunity to get the throttle fully closed by pressing down on the loud pedal. Jenkins comes into pit lane from P2, the Florida native from Tampa, whose home circuit we were at last week at Daytona International Speedway, the world center of racing. And more to the point, well, it seems like there's been drama for Matt Mars. I don't think he's taking any further participation in this race. David Marino is still running. Anthony Sorrentino is been in there for nearly 5 minutes, so I'm wondering if his race might have become a fait accompli, and that's it, done and dusted. 29.5 minutes to go. We have, as Double Apex Gaming said, there's been a little bit of a race of attrition, he says. Well, hasn't quite been a race of attrition unless we had 50% of the runners and riders at the halfway point actually not being out on the circuit and being stuck in pit lane repairing damage big time.
Yeah, you gotta think we showed the replay of it a little bit earlier, that moment for Sorrentino where he slid into those cars in turn 4, which really, I think we could agree, Alex, kind of spelled the story of the race for the LMP2s. That swapped the entire order around, initially put Salas as the class leader, as very late on the pit road on the brakes there is Brock Morris, but he cuts the fine margins close, and more often than not, he successfully holds them. Here he comes, the Lapeer, Michigan, into his pit box. The gap now between who I think is effectively his real battle here with Anthony Jenkins is about 46 seconds right now. That's going to drop and drop as this goes on. Pardon me, it's looking a little bit closer than that. Yeah, it's dropping a little bit now, down to somewhere in the ballpark of 25 seconds. Brian Scott will inherit the lead, the Spanish Ford native, a guy that has generally speaking had an awesome pace through the first 2 weeks of the year. Remember, he was pretty consistently just running P3 all week last week at Daytona. He, looking at these lap times, we'll put him up again for the race. He always runs very consistently in and around his best time of the race, a 1:42.28 in his top time. Trust me, I've seen, give or take, 5 or 6 laps he's put down in this race somewhere in and around that time. So Brian Scott, very quick. Today going to be the first time he's led a lap, I believe, in the series, with the exception of maybe last week's pit cycle. Chase Matsko behind him, not too far back. I think this is effectively going to be the battle for the final podium position, depending on where Morris and Jenkins cycle out. And that gap between Morris and Jenkins now up to 9 whole seconds. So Brock Morris will hold P4 here provisionally. It says currently third. He is fourth. Ryan Peters, a little way up the road there, is currently in third.
Yeah, and the big thing is that Eduardo Sales, who is leading in the LMP2 division, is currently sitting, well, it looks like it's 7th overall, and he's ahead of Jeremy Eshelman, who's about a second and a half behind. Gustavo Ferraro in P3, Decio Lima rounding out your top 4 division, the top 4 in the division for the LMP2s, as Brian Scott and Chase Matsko now dive into pit lane. Brian Peters does exactly the same, so Brock Morris on lap 23 should very much inherit said race lead. Well, it's Brock Morris who leads now in the 0.5. Let's see how close this puts Anthony Jenkins to him. The gap is 7.5 seconds, and when we saw last time out at Daytona, we had one hell of a photo finish for the GTP class win. And more to the point, it was the fact that Brock Morris did a number on everybody else, and even Anthony Jenkins was rather surprised when we spoke to him in the Apex Sim Racing post-race interview show up here in the Race at Exodus Global Broadcast Centre, as Matsko behind Brian Scott, and the gap is 2/10. They get up to full speed very quickly, coming out of the pit lane exit out of Curva de Sol into the Ciudad del Lago via the Reta Posta. And now this battle for the final step on the rostrum. Here goes Matsko with a big rate of speed. He's going to look to the inside at Ferradura at turn 6. And he just literally passes through, but Brian Scott has just lost the back end, nearly collects Jeremy Eshelman. And Brian Scott, the man from Spanish Ford, has got a crabbing Porsche 963 hybrid. We're going to take a look at this again, and he just turns it into the corner. The back end steps out. He nearly catches out Eshelman, and the car goes backwards, bang into the barriers. Right rear takes the brunt of the impact. That affects the drivetrain on that 963 hybrid in that wonderful FMA livery. Decio Lima now returns after his pit stop at this point, and the Brazilian, who ended up edging out another driver for P3 at the line last time around, he returns to the grid in what is effectively 7th position, as musical chairs currently happening between Justin Welsh and Broughton Jones for P5 in the running order of things. But more to the point, it's a case of how hard are you going to want to push in this one, as Jeremy Eshelman comes in for his second pit stop. This is not just his first trip down pit lane. The man from Greensburg, PA in the 0.3, our winner of the opening week out of 12, is changing all the time. Ignacio Arroyo has come into pit lane. Along with that does Dan Marino. And just going to show that sometimes it's not always about those lap times. It's about, as you rightly said, Marshall, it's about that consistency. It's about keeping damage limitation if you're not in a comfortable position in your respective class, but you want to maximize your efficiency in that pit stop, get your backside back in the car, and then off you go once again. And still, with 24 minutes remaining on the timer, Brock Morris has pretty much led every single lap so far, apart from the time when he went into pit lane. He is away and clear, but Jenkins is slowly but surely chipping away at that gap for the race lead, which was 7.5 seconds. It's now 6.5 as the number 732 from Tampa, Florida, makes his way through up the hill into the infield section, the very tight and technical part of the circuit here at Interlagos. He's trying to do everything he can to close on in on his chief rival in the 0-3, that man being Brock Morris, who continues to lead the way.
Well, we talk about the attrition, we talk about the adversity the drivers have faced today. We were saying early on it was the LMP2s we had to keep an eye on. There was, you know, all that chaos, and that turn 4 incident, a couple of cars I think were just limping with damage, eventually succumbed to it, having to take a trip down pit road. But looking at it now, current leader Eduardo Salles in the LMP2 class, he's provisionally going to finish 6th in this race, and eventually he's going to pick up that spot on Ryan Peters, who's kind of an enigma. He's classified on my screens as P4 in his class. For whatever reason, he doesn't seem to be falling into the GTPs, at least as far as our data. So rest assured, Ryan Peters is P4. He is in the GTP class. So kind of add him provisionally on to the rest of your leaderboard. Keep an eye on him. But just interesting kind of how this race has shaken out, that the LMP2 cars, who have been quite good and quite consistent on pace, for whatever reason, that just that lingering damage from that big incident we covered earlier with Sorrentino, looked like guys that, you know, were running a little bit off pace, but looked like they could keep going, could stay in this race for a considerable period of time. Once they hit pit road, I guess they just succumbed to it, didn't want to take the required repair damage, and that means this could be a huge night for the trio of Salles, Ferraro, and I pointed out earlier, Jody Nielsen. I'm trying to remember for the life of me where he finished last week, but certainly this is going to be quite the promotion for him if the Idaho native can bring it home in P3. But keep an eye, the very fast, hard-charging, defending winner in class, Jeremy Eshelman, now goes out to seek a cutting down of that 8-second lead. But here he comes. I thought he was coming down pit road once again. Always hard to tell off the final corner at Interlagos. But keep an eye on him, Eshelman versus Nielsen. Now effectively going to be the last big battle to watch here in LMP2 for the final podium spot.
Yep, and that timer is ticking away here at week 12 weeks. It's I'm stumbling over my words tonight, folks. Apologies on that one, especially considering the fact it's just coming up to 2:15 in the morning here in the UK. But nevertheless, we crack on. We keep on going, and Jeremy Eshelman, it's a really, it kind of reminds me of the Rebellion Racing livery a couple of years ago that the crew were running in the LMP2 division, but also it's got a hint of the John Player Special Lotus liveries back from the mid 70s to the mid 1980s, and of course Ayrton Senna won his first Grand Prix with Lotus back in a John Player Special edition Lotus at Estoril in Portugal. Back in the days when Estoril was able to host Formula One circuits. So this is what I love once again, and I haven't really mentioned it all race, that some of the liveries are really, really good, but also the fact that, glad to see Eduardo Salles, who is leading Gustavo Ferraro by 15 seconds. Of course, the two of the trio, along with Decio Lima for Vortex Racing here in Brazil. It just goes to show that sim racing is also just as much a part of modern day motorsport as we see with the real life side of things. So if you have got your popcorn and your cold beverage of choice, and as they say, it's always 5 o'clock somewhere, so if it is a cold one, I don't blame you for cracking that can open and taking a good swig of refreshing cold alcohol down your throats. But nevertheless, these drivers with 19.25 minutes to go still have to put themselves through the ringer here at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache. It's a circuit that is pretty much on everyone's bucket list. It does have the grandstands going all the way from the entry into turn 1 at the center S's right through all the way back to turn 15. Arquibacandas, the bleachers. But nevertheless, we are seeing quite a few drivers falling by the wayside. Brian Scott out on lap 23, Zach Tankersley out on lap 20. There is the man from Efaola, that is Broughton Jones in pit road, and oh, this is not what you want to do. This is going to be a bit of a rallycross special. Trying to take the Joker lap, but hits the grass again, spins the back end of the Dallara P217. Oh, it's not been a good one for the for this man here in the 444 Marshall. It's gone from okay to mediocre to downright disaster.
Yeah, you can say that again. I like the instinct there, though, to throw the car in reverse, get it out of the way of, I believe that might have been Salas, the class leader, going by him there. So nice heads-up awareness to keep out of the way there, and that really speaks to what we've been seeing. Really great job through 2 weeks in this series for both lap traffic and just respectful racing with kind of passing of the torch when the LMP2 cars are given way to the GTP. Still your race leader. We showed that lap leader count here a moment ago. Brian Scott, the only driver in this race who's taken a race lap off of Brock Morris at the head of this field as we now start the 30th lap of the contest here in just a moment. Just over 17.5 minutes left to go. The question will be, is there need for another pit stop? It's going to be close the way the time's going to work out. We're going to be just about double the pit length or pit lap of most of the cars that pitted later. The furthest a car could go is 23. I think we're going to see somewhere in the ballpark of the low 40s number of laps. So we likely shouldn't need to see another pit stop for these cars that pitted late. But for a car like Eduardo Salas, who pitted relatively early, actually Gustavo Ferraro even earlier, he pitted back on lap 15. There may still be pit road trips yet to come for the LMP2 class. And well, if you're a fan of Salas and Ferraro, the two teammates up front leading the LMP2 class, you might be a little bit worried because it feels like, Alex, it's like a sinkhole there on pit road here at Interlagos. Once a car gets onto pit road, you never know if they're coming back in.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so we've well, it looks like Anthony Sorrentino has rejoined the server down in P9. Broughton Jones has been in there for just over 2 minutes. Rejoins. So here he goes out to the pit lane, and that's exactly where they can start accelerating. Jody Nielsen, the man from Lewiston, Ohio, has just been passed by Jeremy Eshelman. That is for P3 in class, and Eshelman unfortunately has got a big mountain to climb. 22.3 seconds up the road is Gustavo Ferraro, with Eduardo Sales leading the way in the number 22, currently running P6 overall, and Ferraro P8. Eshelman and Nielsen actually round out the top 9, with Justin Welsh completing your top 10 in the 67 ahead of Decio Lima, who's still holding on to P6. But as we hit the final quarter, the last golden 15 minutes of this race here at Interlagos, I think there's still some more stories that might be told at this point. So nevertheless, yeah, so we've got Scott, Tankersley, Mars, Brown and Milbrath all out of the GTP side of things as Decio Lima comes through into the center S's once again. But it's still difficult at this point, despite the gaps being as long as they are between drivers here, Marshall. You just don't know how the rest of the story is going to pan out at the end.
Well, let me kind of give a peek into what I think the final chapter of this race could look like. I alluded to it a moment ago, the pit lap of these drivers the last time these guys came down pit road. We'll see if we can show it up here on the left-hand side, but It was lap 23 here. There you see the lap number that every driver most recently pitted. And look to the top of the LMP2 class. Eshelman lap 23. That's only they're now on lap 29 as the LMP2 field, 2 laps behind that of the GTPs. That's only 6 laps ago for Eshelman. On the flip side for Ferraro, that was almost 14 laps ago. He's almost doubled his initial pit lap here in the second part of the stint. If there is going to be one more splash of fuel needed for these LMP2 drivers, it was about 35, 40 seconds was the pit window cycle on that first go-around. He's very much still in play. If either or both of those front 2 cars, the 2 Brazilian teammates, if they need to pit, Eshelman has still got all to play for, and he is driving like it. He is putting up 128, including low 128s every single lap. The pace up front in the top of the class, Salas did a 129.2 the last time by, Ferraro a 129.6. So there is still a little bit more, I think, in this race if another pit stop is needed. Otherwise, it looks like Eshelman may need to settle for the podium, but he is going to race like he's got all to play for. And so is Anthony Jenkins up there in P2. You see the last time by, he ran a 124.6, but it was a 123.998, just a sliver under 124 for Brock Norris, who I think last week just did something for him. I don't mean to say he's gone through any sort of adversity this week, but thinking about his last week of racing and off track, last week in the FMA GT3 series, it was a win. It was a great start for him. This week, though, he had a mistake in his qualifying for the Monday series that meant he was fighting his way all the way back through all race, was never really a factor in the series that he is usually one of the front runners in. And then I heard earlier today he had a calculus final that he had to write. He said it sounded like it took a lot out of him, which you can't blame him there, Alex. Calculus of all subjects before a race day, yikes. And then you think about coming into today, a little bit of adversity the last couple races, including, I didn't even mention, getting passed on the last lap last week. It's just something to think about. Brock Morris, I don't mean to say he's overcoming any sort of major, obstacles in life, but it hasn't been the perfect last week. It would be nice to see if he can round this off today, where the top guy, clear pace, the pole sitter, brings it home in P1. He's certainly had it coming after the last 14 days, and again, calculus of all subjects. Yikes.
That's a brain taxer if ever there was one. And looks like Braxton Cornelius has just joined us in the YouTube chat. When does the race start? Well, unfortunately, you've missed about 48 minutes of the race, my friend, because we're down into the final 12. Now, coming back to the point that you made about Jeremy Eshelman, that was his second trip in the pit lane, so I think Eshelman set the car up for very, very good running under a light fuel load and decided, well, if we're going to have 2 pit stops, I'm going to make the best of the situation. I'll pit early if I want to get out of the traffic, and then also give myself an opportunity to pit for the second time when I need to, rather than there being a designated window thereof to do so by. And when you think about it, Gustavo Ferrero could be pitting in maybe in the next lap or 2. I would imagine that Eduardo Sales might do the same. They are running 29.6 for Eduardo Sales. Gustavo Ferrero last time round a 30.2. Jeremy Eshelman, oh well, he is scything his way through that gap at the moment, and his last lap was a 28.64, which was 1.6 seconds quicker than Gustavo Ferraro, who is now up into P2 in the 777. Eduardo Sales up the road by the best part of 20 seconds. And I still can't really give you all an idea of who I think might win this race, but more to the point that you need to... You've just got to try and put everything on the line a little bit here. Even though it's early doors in the championship series, you've still got another 10 weeks to go. If you don't score here, then that's going to give you a little bit more of a push forward in the right direction. And Marshall, I'm still up in the air as to who might win these particular classes, because it is still, as we saw last time out at Daytona, some positions decided by a nose, the front hood of the vehicle, or the front clamshell nose on the cars, managing to do their best. But also, here we go with Gustavo Ferraro. Oh, Jeremy Eshelman has just had a big problem. That was just coming out of Jungsao, so he's going to go through into Magulo here. Now is the back end going to swap? You can see it starting to slide. And he just about manages to keep that car pointing in the right direction here at the circuit. So, yeah, who knows how it might transpire. We're going to have a replay here on board with Jeremy Eshelman. So standing in the back end, steps out on him. So he ended up being a little bit of a mainstay passenger on that one there, Marshall. So who knows what might transpire. Meantime, Decio Lima has just gone and put in his fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 28.359. That is the fastest, I think, out of the LMP2 so far. So the man that finished by a nose cone last time out in 3rd position at Daytona. Well, it doesn't matter if there's 8 3/4 minutes to go. If I'm going to get the fastest lap, I'll do it here on home soil.
That mistake for Jeremy Eshelman might cost him a race win if Eduardo Salles, in 2 laps' time, the way it would play out, is going to have to come in as well. And then at that point here, Alex, all to play for, Jody Nielsen could still win this race because he is right behind Jeremy Eshelman, who's recovered well, is back up about a second further ahead of Nielsen than he was last lap. But here's Nielsen up into P3. He pitted on lap 19. The way the numbers are shown here for me, Alex, I think he is going to run out maybe on the last lap. Nielsen promotes himself into the podium. Salles still has a pit stop to go, and of course Salles was quite a ways up the road. He was about 16 seconds ahead of Ferraro. Ferraro comes out, it's going to be give or take about 6 seconds behind Nielsen. So it's looking pretty good, but now the question here, Alex, is did Jeremy Eshelman cost himself the race on that spin? Is that going to be the race-deciding move, the way we kind of alluded that it might be?
Thing is that bearing in mind his total pit stop times, including pit stop number 1, has been around about the 35-second mark. So I would not just count him out yet, but Eduardo Salles has yet to pit. He's on lap number 19 of his second stint, so he's going to push that fuel window right down to the ragged edge as we've got just under 7 minutes to go. And if he has a, let's say, a shorter pit stop this time, I mean, looking at Decio Lima's last pit stop, it was 21 seconds plus transfer time. And one of the big things is that you have to also try and compensate for the long pit lane exit where you go through into the inner part of the CNRSs at the circuit, which measures just under 2.7 miles. I still think there might be an outside chance for possibly Nielsen and Ferraro to get closer and closer, but it's just dependent on when they pull that trigger, because Eduardo Salles is absolutely hustling. He's about 75% of the way through lap number 36, as our leaders now coming through to complete lap 38, with Brock Morris leading in the 05 Cadillac V Series D, in the V Series R. But there we go, Eduardo Salles into pit lane. This is now where the race truly begins, and it's really going to count on when Eduardo Salles gets all 4 wheels back on terra firma. This could be the best pit stop in the LMP2 division for the second. Yep, 10.3 seconds. This might be closer than you might expect. Eshelman is about 0.8 of a mile behind. He's now making his way up through Subirida's boxes into Arquibacandas here at turn number 15. And we wait for the delta relative to adjust accordingly. It was 10.3 seconds in the pit lane. Jody Nielsen, oh, that's not when you want to pit at the 5-minute mark, still to go until the timer strikes 0. So he's going to now have to succumb to the fact of the pit stop strategy not being on that 3000 IQ strat, as Justin Welsh manages to just about keep ahead of Decio Lima, and just in front of them is think that is Sorrentino in the 604 car, No, that's not actually. That's going to be the Porsche of Ryan Peters. So Ryan doing also another good job. He's looking strong for a top 5 finish. Meantime, Lima battling away, gets through on Justin Welsh, but nevertheless, the gap has come down from what was about 40 plus seconds between Eshelman and Sales. It's come down to just under 19 seconds remaining, as we will next time around have 2 more laps to go when Brock Morris completes lap 40 of the circuit here at Interlagos at the Autodromo José Carlos Pache. But nevertheless, the man from Lapeer, Michigan, has not put a foot wrong. He's put it on pole position. He's got the fastest lap. All he needs now is to hang on for around about another 2 laps, and then that's it. Job is done, and Brock Morris will be definitely showcasing why he is at the top, or at the very nigh on the very top of our standings lead at the moment between our respective drivers. So just 3 minutes on the counter to go. Brock Morris through it. Arquibagandas gets very close to the wall on the inside of the final turn. Across the line he goes. 1:24.648. 2 laps remain as Jenkins finds himself 6.5 seconds adrift. So it is a Caddy 1-2 with Ferrari, Porsche and Caddy rounding out your top 5 overall when it comes to the GTPs, whereas Eduardo Sales leading by just over 19 seconds over Week 1 winner Jeremy Eshelman and Gustavo Ferraro, and from Brazil, teammate to Sales and Decio Lima, rounding out your top 3 in the LMP2 division. Still there are some very close sort of GTP versus LMP2 battles. Like you say, they haven't really interfered with the general running of the race itself.
No, not really. I mean, this one is going to cost Jenkins. You see the lockup on the right front there, just trying to find a way around Marino, who's still he's holding his own line. That's what they tell you to do. But in some of these more technical sections here, where there is just kind of one line, you got to hit your specific marks. It can be a little more costly in this section to have a prototype LMP2 in front of you as a GTP, as Justin Welsh on the very final lap of the race will come down pit road. This we'll see what the gap looks like, might give Ignacio Arroyo the final spot in the top 5 here in this race, seemingly teammate of Jeremy Eshelman. We gotta say, I don't know how much those of you watching at home or you yourself, Alex, believe in home field advantage in racing, but we have Brazilian 1, we have Brazilian 3, and we have Brazilian in 4. It has been a stellar day for the 3 countrymen of Jose Carlos Pache's circuit here. We've got Jeremy Eshelman, the only guy breaking it up in the middle. And in terms of pure pace today, there is an argument. Maybe he had the most. Maybe he had the most raw power in that car. But today, a couple mistakes, including that spin on pit road and the little bit off-kilter pit strategy, has given Sales complete control of this race since that Sorrentino incident earlier. Only final thing I'm going to mention here is Anthony Sorrentino this week. He was pumping in the laps on the sim. You could see in his telemetry, he was actually running this racetrack in the GTPs most of the week. He was practicing in the upper class. He still has the fastest lap of anybody this week in practice in the Porsche, and I believe one of the others might have been the Acura. So he is a guy that, I don't know, you got to think maybe it would have had more luck in that other class. I know we had some struggles in the LMP2 today. Just want to give him a shout out. He's got some clear, genuine pace that I think is much higher than today's race result is going to represent. The only other thing I'm going to mention, more of a broad, big picture topic, is Brock Morris comes across the line for the white flag. It's always a talking point on iRacing. What's the best prototype? What's the class? What's the meta, as the kids say in real life? It's probably the Ferrari or the Porsche, but in the sim, it's often talked about the Acura and the BMW, very hard to drive. Who is at the top of the leaderboard when it comes to success in today's race? Cadillac, Ferrari, Porsche. What cars had a little bit of struggle? Acura and BMW there towards the bottom of the drivers out of this race. Something to think about for future weeks. There's no limitation on car selection in this series. Drivers can switch as they want. But the guy that is very happy with his car choice today, you got to think, is the Cadillac, the 05 of Brock Morris, coming to a close for what will be his first race win of the new series.
Yes, indeed, missing out to Anthony Jenkins last time out at Daytona. But redemption has been very much in the forefront of the mind of the man from Lapeer, Michigan in the 05 Cadillac V Series R. He is 9 seconds up the road. He's going to head through into Magulo in turn 11 and down the hill into Junção before we head up to Subida's boxes, and for the final time it will be turn number 15, powering up the hill here on lap 43. It has been lights out to check it. It has been the perfect run to the finish. Brock Morris from Lapeer, Michigan wins week 2 here in FMA Prototype Challenge Series action at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Paci in Interlagos. We have got a little bit of a wait for him, but meantime it is going to be very much a time for Brazil to celebrate in its own right, because Eduardo Salles has done a sterling job in the number 22 entry. He now makes his way into Mergulo before heading to Junção, up through into Subida's boxes through turns 13 and 14 for the final time. And as we say, muito parabéns, it's your winner, Eduardo Salles, for Brazil here on home soil at Interlagos. He wins in the LMP2 division here in round 2 out of 12.
What an awesome drive from each of our top 2 in class today. We know there was attrition. We know there was a little bit of chaos in the midsection of this race, some troubles on pit road, but our 2 race winners in each class faced no such adversity today. What a drive for each of these 2 gentlemen. It's going to be Morris. Anthony Jenkins does hold on to P2, last week's winner. He's 2 for 2 in the top 2 through 2 weeks. Chase Matsko rounds off the podium there in 3rd position, his first podium of the new series. And there it is. It is Jeremy Eshelman finished the race just a moment ago. Gustavo Ferraro as well. The Brazilian will take 2 of the top 3 spots for his countryman. Decio Lima just behind there in P4, but Lima led quite a few laps today. Don't forget, he was P4 at the drop of the green. By about turn 4, he was P1 in this race. Stellar day for Decio Lima and all of the Brazilian countrymen. But it is Morris, it is Salles, your winners today at Interlagos.
Oh, what a way to cap off a quick 60-minute jaunt around here as Barney the flag marshal waves the checkered flag. And Brock Morris, he's done a really stellar job on this particular one, and he's doing the old burnouts here on the start-finish stretch. I'm wondering if we're going to see some victory donuts from the Cadillac. Maybe he might decide to do that here at turn 1 at the Center S's, but there you see your race results after 43 laps as Brock Morris lights up the rear tyres, brings the smoke to Sao Paulo. He takes the win after 43 laps ahead of Anthony Jenkins. There we go. He gets the back end spun around. Come on, Brock. Get those rear tyres lit up and burn some rubber in the form of what we should see for celebrations here at Interlagos. Anthony Jenkins rounds out P2 with Chase Matsko in the Kimi Räikkönen special Ferrari 499P rounds out your top 3. Ryan Peters, Jay Davis rounds out the top 5. Eduardo Salles wins in LMP2, taking 6th overall ahead of Jeremy Eshelman and Gustavo Ferraro, who round out the top 8 overall. But more importantly, that is your top 3 rounded out in the LMP2 division. Decio Lima and Justin Welch round out the top 5 in the LMP2, thereby completing the top 10. Puerto Rico's Ignacio Arroyo rounds out 11th overall ahead of Jody Nielsen, Anthony Sorrentino, David Marino, Broughton Jones finishing 15 laps from the end, retiring on lap 28. We lost Brian Scott in the 85 Porsche on lap 23, Zach Tankersley in the 23 Acura on lap 20, the BMW MV8 hybrid of the number 34 of Matt Mars finishing on lap 16, retiring from the race, Jacob Brown out on lap 9, Robert Milbrath out on lap 6, and KH Donahue did not even take to the start of the circuit. And more to the point, Brock Morris gets the Grand Chelem fastest lap, pole position, most laps led, and he takes the win here at week 2 as the dust has truly settled here in Brazil in the district of Sao Paulo at Interlagos. Well, folks, after the on-track action has now concluded, we've got a few drivers standing by for the Apex Sim Racing post-race interview show. Firstly, a big shout out to Apex Sim Racing Shop, one of our big friends here on the Racer Nexus Broadcast Network. If you do want to get your equipment like your direct drives, your pedal sets like the SimuCube active pedals, which I've actually had the opportunity to give a try. They are something else, folks. And I had an opportunity back in 2023 at the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa to give them a try. One person who I met that weekend, who's also an international racer from Brazil, Felipe Fraga, the youngest ever Stock Car Pro Series champion back in 2016, and went on to win the 2025 championship at this very circuit late last year. But with that in mind, let's get things underway with the post-race interview show, and we're going to bring in our overall race winner for week 2. Let's welcome in the 05 Brock Morris. Can you hear us? Brock, are you there? So just bear with us a moment, folks, because we sometimes pull them up and we don't always get the... Hello! Right, Brock, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Sorry, there must have been some sort of network thing there, so I apologize for that.
Don't worry about that at all. Well, redemption at Interlagos for week 2. You got the Grand Chelem fastest lap of the race. All laps led, pole position, and you pick up the win here in week 2. You must be on cloud 9 right now, my friend.
Yes, I am. I'm pretty happy, especially, it was pretty rough last week to lose the race in that way. Just didn't, probably should have defended a little bit harder, may have lived to tell the tale, but yeah, it was about as good as this week could have went, and I wasn't sure if this race in particular was going to be very good since I've been very busy with school, but yeah, super excited to win this and get another win to hopefully get closer to the championship lead, if not in the championship lead.
I think that's one of the things here at Interlagos, that qualifying does also pay dividends, as you rightly showed here, that you got a good launch and off the line when we went green 60 minutes ago, and you just kept those racehorse blinkers on, just concentrated on what you needed to do, kept an eye on the relative delta between yourself and Anthony and everybody else. But you started to get your stride early in the race. What was the main tactic from your side, just to get the job done and just bring home the W and get to victory lane?
Yeah, I was just, like you said, just put the blinders on, hit your marks. I was just kind of had my last lap time up and just trying to stay consistent, just keep, getting through it. 60 minutes is a long time for these races and a lot of area for mistakes. So I knew just minimizing mistakes is, that will get you pretty far. So yeah, that was the main plan.
Nevertheless, a win's a win, and you got all the check boxes ticked there, like I said. But next time out, we head to Road Atlanta. That's going to be a different test all in its own right, considering what we've got here at Interlagos here on week 2.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking about that before I got pulled in here, that's going to be a really fun track, high speed, the S's through there. That's a really good one. And then added with the multi-class, it always adds an element of excitement there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Road Atlanta has been pretty hit or miss for me, honestly, but I'm hoping next week will be a hit.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations on the win here for week 2 out of 12. Brock, before we let you go, anyone you would like to give a shout out to in particular?
Absolutely. Kettering University, Kettering Esports. Like to shout out Juicy Spider Studios, High Side Podcast. I'd also like to shout out you guys up here in the booth. You do a great job, and everybody at FMA for putting this whole thing together.
Brilliant. Well, Brock, congratulations on being our overall race winner, not just in GTP, but overall here at Interlagos. We'll see you in 7 days' time next week at week 3 when we head to Road Atlanta.
All right. Thank you, guys. I'll see you then.
So big thank you there to our winner overall. And next up, well, joining Marshall here in the Racer Nexus Global Broadcast Center. Let's bring in our runner-up overall, Anthony Jenkins, who won last week at Daytona, finishes runner-up here at Interlagos. Over to you, Marshall.
Yeah, Brock was just too fast for me tonight. I made a couple of mistakes in the opening laps and let him get a gap, and he's not a guy that you want to give a window to because he'll drive away from you.
It very clearly became apparent in the early stages that, you know, the cold tires, getting the tire within the window at a track that had so many medium speed, high speed corners like Interlagos, you guys all looked like you were babying the car a little bit at the beginning and then kind of settled into it. How long did it take you to get kind of comfortable in this car that seemed in both classes to be giving drivers so much trouble with early on?
I would say it takes a good, probably on your 4th lap where you can really start leaning on it. But even then, as the track heats up, you overheat the tires very quickly, and yeah, I think Brock just did a better job tonight.
Looking forward to next week. We're heading to Road Atlanta, one of my favorite tracks on the service. It's a track that we talked about all through the broadcast. It's going to be probably the first chance to see the LMP2s and the GTPs really cost each other a lot of time. That first sector in particular, it's kind of one groove, very technical, one lane. It'll be hard to get around cars. What do you think that's going to throw a wrench in the works? How do you think that's going to change the order that's been mostly the same in GTP through 2 weeks when you add that lap traffic element in?
Road Atlanta is definitely a chaos factory, for sure. I'm not sure how many of the LMP2 guys have experience being the slower class there, so definitely going to be a lot of. I'm going to be very cautious, just keeping the whole season in mind and trying to get a good finish.
Well, that's what I like to hear, and you've certainly put on a great show through 2 weeks, 2 very consistent, very strong races with great flat-out pace. I know the GTP class, a couple of the fast guys like Zach, like Brian, had some trouble today. They're going to give you, I'm sure, a little bit of a better fight next week. For today, though, you come away with the P2, and for it, do you have anybody at home, anybody you want to thank, any shout-outs you want to give?
As ever, you guys for being in the booth, all the admins in the league, and my wife for putting up with this nonsense. See you guys next week.
We will see you then. Thanks so much, Anthony.
Thanks, guys.
Right, well, thank you very much there to our second place finisher, Anthony Jenkins. But we've got to bring in Chase, Iceman Matsko. Chase, we finally made the Kimi Räikkönen reference this week after you giving myself and Marshall a little bit of stick last time. But P3 on the road in the... I don't know what we can call it, whether we call it the Alfa Ferrari 499P or something like that with that livery you've got, but a P3 finish, despite quite a few heavy battles with the likes of Zach Tankersley and Chase Matz, along with yourself, and also with Brian Scott, who unfortunately retired from the race. You hit the podium for the first time this series. How are you feeling?
Good. I mean, I was pretty slow, but the comparison to Brock and Anthony, I don't know what the heck they were doing, but it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, Interlagos, a very, very different circuit to the season opener a week ago at Daytona, but still, you managed to weather the storm. What was the kind of the strategy when you saw the two caddies run away with things, and you sort of like you had to sort of like have at least multiple plans in that head of yours, just as like think, okay, right, I've got to try and get a podium. I need to get a good points haul on the board for week 2 after a very difficult run at Daytona for the opening week of the series.
Yeah, it was just I was just trying to keep up with Brian the best I could, because Brian's really good in those cars, and that's usually a specialty. But if I keep up with him, I'd be good. And then Zach and I had a little tangle there. I don't know whose fault it was, if it was racing deal or what, but it wasn't a big deal. But it was good. I was trying to save my right rear tire, but it didn't work out very well. I kept getting loose on the last part going up to the uphill, and I had no tires left by the end, so I was just holding on for dear life.
Yeah, it is very, very tricky, especially with the adverse camber here at Interlagos. But nevertheless, a P3 is a run on the rostrum, so well done tonight. Road Atlanta next week for week 3, another 60-minute encounter. How do you think the Ferrari's going to hold up over there?
That's one of my best tracks, so hopefully pretty good. I don't know. I had to really drive it. I haven't really driven it around there. I've only driven the Cadillac around there. I haven't had a whole lot of time in a Ferrari because I used to be really bad in it, but now I just clicked with it. So hopefully I can keep it going with that. It's a little temperamental comparison to the other ones.
Yeah, still a little bit learning, I would imagine, and you definitely need to get a bit of seat time in. But nevertheless, congratulations on your P3 finish here tonight, Chase. Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to give thanks to before we let you go?
Just FMA and you guys for doing such great broadcasts. I appreciate you guys being here.
Brilliant, Chase. We'll see you next week, week 3, when we head to Road Atlanta. Well done tonight.
Thank you, sir.
So a big thank you there to Chase. We're going to have to nickname him now Iceman Matsko, aren't we? Because of the Kimi Räikkönen reference. But we now turn our attention to the LMP2 division, and it is a home victory for our race winner. It's the number 22 of Vortex's very own Eduardo Sales, who we're now going to bring in alongside to join Marshall Crocker.
Good evening, Eduardo. Welcome to the broadcast booth, and congratulations, my man. First win of the season in the LMP2 class. Talk me through it. I know there were some cars there in the early stages that looked like they were quick, but once you got by in that early battle, you set sail. Let's talk about that battle, that little incident between Gustavo Ferraro, Decio Lima, and Anthony Sorrentino. You sneak by and you take off. Talk me through those couple laps in the early stages. It's the sheer excitement here, Alex. These race wins.
I know. I'm waiting for a, not just. We could have an absolutely brilliant interview with Eduardo. So we'll just. Eduardo, can you hear us?
Hello, guys. How to say for translate? I will not speak English. It's bad.
Okay.
No problem at all. Do you have any sort of summary for us today with the stellar drive? You come away with the win. How would you sum it up, as simple as you can? All right. Well, we're gonna call it for this one, but through. Oh, sorry.
Hey guys, Eduardo doesn't speak English. If you want to pull me in, I can help out with the translation.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Marshall, take it away, buddy.
We'll pop you in. We'll do kind of a collective here amongst the Brazilian countrymen who come away with 2 podium positions tonight. Let's kind of ask as a whole in general. I know that the Brazilian drivers are more than likely going to be quick here at Interlagos, but in particular tonight, what is it about this track that just popped for both of you?
Night, foi uma corrida muito boa. A pista é uma pista muito técnica. Não é uma pista que eu sou muito fã, apesar de ser brasileiro. Tenho bastante dificuldade, mas eu consegui achar um ritmo legal e desempenhar bem hoje.
So he said it's good track, and it's not the best track. He's do his best races, but even though he's Brazilian, but he likes this track, and it was a good race tonight.
And what should we expect for the rest of the calendar? It's a good first 2 weeks for the both of you, but Road Atlanta and the other tracks going ahead. How's he feeling, generally speaking, for the next couple races?
espero manter o ritmo bom para conseguir continuar brigando pela frente do grid ali. E as próximas corridas estão do meu agrado, então eu espero que eu vou desempenhar bem.
Oh, he said he's gonna try to keep his pace, and he likes the next tracks. Is the one that he's good ones, and he tried to get in front of again.
Well, that's what I like to hear. We can shift right to you as well, Gustavo, because a very strong day for both of the Vortex team cars. Let's go to yourself. Today's race seemed all the way up and down, all the way through the field, and I talked about that incident with Sorrentino and a couple other drivers with you guys there in turn 4. What was your perspective on the incident that kind of changed the race in LMP2?
Well, I think I didn't qualify well. Was P5. And then keep pushing to get in front of it and not lose contact with the top 3 guys there once I was there. And that incident came. So before the incident, really, we got a chance to get the 3 Vortex cars in front, right? P1, P2, P3. But then we had that incident. Really, I haven't seen the replay yet. I think it is a race incident. Maybe lost his brake point or something, lock his tires. We need to watch it again. But that damaged my car, so I think I could be in P2 if I don't have the car bad. And then I make the bad decision not stop right away. I think I should have stopped, because when I put fuel, the car got fixed, and then the minimum fix was enough to get back on track.
We could see Jeremy Ushelman. He had a similar situation. He pitted right away to get rid of it, and it seemed like over the race that was the better choice. But you live and you learn. That's why that's why we do these races. That's why we do so many here in the season. For both of you, before you give your shout-outs, I am going to tell you, you guys had some great support in the YouTube chat tonight. There was a lot of excitement for Vortex Racing. So with that in mind, anybody you want to shout out at home, or any final thoughts for tonight?
Well, so let's say thank you for all the support, the Vortex team. And thank you for FMA for putting those races together. That's awesome. So we're loving the prototype Thursday night, and we'll be there next week.
That's what I like to hear. Congratulations to both of you. Congratulations to Eduardo on the race win tonight. It was a great showing for Vortex, and it's been a great showing through 2 weeks. I can't wait to see what you guys bring in Atlanta next week. With that, we're going to send it to our final interview of the night, the P2 finisher in class, the gentleman who won last week in the LMP2s. And my goodness, you narrowly have a more eventful 2 weeks in a class with 10 cars than Jeremy Ushelman has had. We'll send it to you, Alex, to wrap it up with tonight's P2 finisher.
Well, Jeremy, along with Anthony Jenkins, you become the only driver that has been in the top 2 for the opening 2 weeks of the FMA Prototype Challenge Series. It was a bit of a toughie out there, wasn't it, tonight?
Oh, yeah, that race was definitely interesting. Didn't go 100% the way I hoped, but I'll take a P2.
Yeah, I mean, we were just having a chat with Eduardo and Gustavo, obviously, with the fact that turn 4 at the Cedar de Lago, Anthony Sorrentino comes flying in from way back when. I mean, it caught everyone off guard, didn't it?
Yeah, that battle was getting real aggressive about 2 laps before that. I saw things starting to go down. Me and Lima had some dicey battles in the 1 and 2, where I had to go off track a couple times, but Sorrentino got by me, and then I thought he wiped everyone out for me. I thought I was going to clear all of them, but not quite.
But still, nevertheless, this keeps you at the sharp end of the LMP2 field heading into week 3 as we head to Road Atlanta on April the 2nd. What are your thoughts ahead of that race? Because we go from one very, very elevation-heavy circuit to another one that's going to have its fair share of fast straights and tight technical corners. How do you see that one sort of playing out beforehand?
I think it's going to be another good battle at the front with it's the other team. I apologize, I don't know their team name. Sorrentino is always good in LP2s, so I think it's going to be another close battle with all of us.
Well, nevertheless, a good run to decide to do that early pit stop strategy after the Sorrentino Send, I think we're going to nickname that one, going into turn 4 here at Interlagos. But before we let you go, Jeremy, anyone you'd like to give a shout out to or thank in particular?
I'll just shout out my team, Threshold Motorsports again. I know some of them were tuned in watching tonight, so I appreciate the support. And those guys are fun to work with and continue to race with in other series with the GT3s on Mondays. So it'll be fun to get back in the car on Monday too.
Brilliant. Well, Jeremy, congratulations on your second place finish, keeping you in the lead of the LMP2 standings, leaving here at Interlagos as we'll head to Road Atlanta next week for week 3. Well done tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Well, and that concludes the Apex Sim Racing post-race interview show for week 2 of the Freedom Motorsport Alliance Prototype Challenge Series. Marshall, 60 minutes at Interlagos. This circuit is a firm favourite with many a person, many a commentator, many a broadcaster, and also our racers here tonight as well. It really did provide some dynamite action as we head to week 3 at Road Atlanta in just 7 days' time.
I can't wait. Road Atlanta is one of my personal favorites. It'll be coming one night off of off my birthday, actually. Funny of all things. I, unfortunately, will be in the process of figuring it out. I actually will not be able to make that race, but it's one of my favorites. Trust me, if I'm not too caught up in my work commitment, I will be tuning in to check it out because it's a technical track. It's a circuit that rewards aggression, not necessarily aggression in terms of move, but aggression in terms of approach and preparation. And like we talked about, a couple of these guys in these series for both GT3 on Mondays and prototypes on Thursdays, they have a little bit more time opening up in their work schedule now, so expect the prep to get better, expect the racing to get faster, and I can't wait for the rest of this calendar. 10 more rounds to go, and through what we've seen in the first 2 races, I think we can both agree here, Alex, it's anybody's game, and that is what you like to see as a driver, as a viewer, and as a broadcaster. It's always been a pleasure. I love doing this series. It's a nice contrast to my racing in the Monday GT3s, and I can't wait for next time we get the chance to cross paths, Alex. This is always a ton of fun, and I get the feeling we're going to get a good race as well when I return at Red Bull Ring on the 9th.
Yes, indeed. So that is it from us here at the Racer Nexus Broadcast Network. If you want to get involved with the league itself, the Discord link is in the description down below. Along with that, there's the remainder of our calendar. As Marshall rightly said, 2 races down. We're still in the infancy of this Prototype Challenge Series, which is going to rock its way to Road Atlanta, then go to Styria to the Red Bull Ring. Then we head to our first endurance round on April 16th, 90 minutes at Spa-Francorchamps, where speeds will be in excess of 200 miles an hour. Then we head to the Temple of Speed at the Royal Park of Monza itself at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza on April 23rd. We head to Germany to the Hockenheim Ring on April 30th. The place where legends are born, the home of the 24 hours of all time, the Le Mans 24 hours circuit on May the 7th for 60 minutes. Then we go to the first of 2-hour Enduros on May 14th at the home of British motor racing, Silverstone. The Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari will host round number 9 on May 21st. We then go back stateside for the final 2 rounds of the calendar, the home of the 12 Hours of Sebring at Sebring International Raceway, the old home of the Hendricks Air Force Base in Florida on May 28th, and then of course the home of the 6 Hours of the Glen, Watkins Glen at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin will host the 120 minutes double points finale on June the 4th. A few thank yous from our side. A big thank you to everyone that has been involved in the YouTube chat, and if you haven't already, please give us a like, share and subscribe. Whilst you're at it, hit that notification bell because we've got so much racing coming up. We've got Freedom Motorsport Alliance GT3s on Mondays, Apex this GT4 Tuesdays on Tuesdays, and so much more. If you're in the market for getting your latest bit of sim racing gear, be it active pedal sets from Simucube, your direct drives from Simucube, maybe even some SimMagic products, and everything you can think of that is available at the Apex Sim Racing Shop, head to the referral link down below in the description and use the coupon code RACERNEXUS for 5% off all purchases. Also with that, a big thank you to our good friends at TrackCams22.com, track cams for connoisseurs, providing us with great broadcast camera coverage for every single race here on Racer Nexus. Thank you so much for joining us, and up here it's goodbye from myself, Alex Goldschmidt, and Marshall Crocker in the Racer Nexus Global Broadcast Center. Well, that's it here at Interlagos as we head to Georgia, whereas Ray Charles once said he's always got Georgia on his mind. Well, we'll have that in 7 days' time. Until then, race hard, race fair, and if in doubt, like here in Interlagos, well, you better go flat out. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.